meeting. And before we begin, I would invite you to stand and join me in the pledge, and then Randall Harriman will bring the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for your blessings you've given us, Lord. We thank you for everything you've done for our city. We pray tonight that you'll be with us all as we make decisions for the city and help us to do it in a manner well-pleasing to you, Lord. In Christ's name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Randall. All right. I'd like to again welcome you here tonight to this regular meeting of the Springdale City Council. This is Tuesday, March 8th, 2022. We do have large print agendas available. Wyman's got them there if that would be helpful for anyone. So now I'll ask our city clerk to call the roll.
Mayor Sprouse.
Here.
Brian Powell.
Here.
Amelia Williams. Here. Jeff Watson. Here. Mike Overton.
Here.
Mike Lawson.
Here.
Kevin Flores.
Here.
Randall Harriman.
Here.
Mark Fugerus.
Here.
Ernest Kate.
Here. All right, thank you. We'll move on to item 5. Comments from our citizens. If we have residents that would like to speak to the council concerning an item that is not already on tonight's agenda, we ask that you go to the microphone at the podium there. Please state your name and address, and we ask that you keep your comments brief. And again, the council won't be taking action on anything you bring forward tonight. Is there anyone that would like to address the council concerning an item that's not already on tonight's agenda? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to item 6, approval of minutes. Hopefully we've had an opportunity to look over those. Council, if there are no changes or additions, I'd entertain a motion to approve them as presented.
So moved.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say aye. Okay, thank you. Item 7, a discussion of the water and sewer system revenue bonds, Series 2022. Bob, are you taking that? Okay, Heath's on Zoom. You're muted, Heath, and Bob Wright's here to help.
Yeah, I'm on Zoom. I would ask that whoever's controlling the visual from the IT perspective to show the council if they could. Currently the IT host has them blocked on video.
All right, guys, can you help us with that? IT?
I messaged him, said he's working on it, the camera issue.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and speak.
If they shared their screen with Heath, if they shared their screen with you, would that work?
It would probably also help Kevin. I think he's seeing the same thing I am. All we're getting is a city council screen with the logo.
That's all we're getting too.
Okay. Well, I'll let those guys work on it, Mr. Mayor. The bottom line is that for years we prided ourselves on not having to borrow money and keep rates low in Springdale. Unfortunately, recent economic situations have created a new reality, and I don't think it's even for our Water and Sewer Commission. I think it's for the city as well. The last project we did, we estimated at $2.5 to $3 million. Those bids come in around 5.2. So it's been rough, but we've got to proceed with the city's business. We're fortunate enough to have a very good cash reserve, and what I'm coming to the council tonight with is basically we're going to have to borrow money. It's something I've never wanted to do, and I think the council members who have been there for a while is something we've never wanted to do. And for new council members, we've always prided ourselves on not doing that unless we had to. I don't think we've borrowed money for the last 20 years or so. Not in my tenure. Long story short, I think that the tea room show that we had a situation where we have to do improvements immediately with wastewater plant. Number one, we have to do it because of population growth, and that's not slowing down. And, you know, you can say that's bad or good. The second thing is that I don't think money's gonna get any cheaper at this point. And we need to do this project as quickly as we can, because I don't believe that it's going to get any cheaper. And fourth, I should say, we have a situation where we wait for the ARPA funds. We don't have the money to do that very quickly and get done and allocate it like 24 and finish by 26. And we may not see those monies, and we don't know where that is. That's the joker in the deck. And the other thing is we have other growth issues in Springdale that we have to deal with. So I think short-term bonding is smart. Right now we have favorable rates, and at this time we can borrow that money without having to raise our rates because of financial and fiduciary responsibility to execute very well. So with that, I'll turn over to Bob Wright, and if there's questions from council, Bob, or I can answer those.
Keith, I appreciate it. Mayors, members of council, I'm Bob Wright. I'm the Senior Managing Director of Cruz and Associates, and we've worked with the city for a number of years on the various sales tax financings that have helped grow the city. It's kind of nice to be in this new part of the building that we helped in that process. As he said, we've met with him and staff a number of times as this has been kind of building to where we can come to a plan to the city and answer any questions you have. We've met with the commission a number of times and have presented these numbers, and Heath and staff have presented kind of the need and why we're here. We didn't want to, because the commission is making some decisions, but it's still the city of Springdale, and the city will be issuing the debt. And as he said, it's the first time, and I've been doing this 35 years, first time I've realized, that I can recall that the city has issued utility debt, which is unusual. Just about every city, not only in Arkansas, but around the country, is in debt with water and sewer, because that's a constant need. So they've been very good stewards of your ratepayers' monies over the years, not having to borrow money. But it is time that we try to be fiscally responsible, issue some of this debt while the interest rates are still low, that they can effectively manage the expectations. What I handed out earlier, we didn't want to just show up at the city council meeting with an ordinance and the issue sold, and hey, here it is, 45 million, y'all approve it. Y'all know how we work. We want to be here tonight, just kind of go over some of the basics, because you're making a decision for the citizens of Springdale. You need to kind of understand the process, the various costs of what we're doing, the structure while we're doing it, so that you know when we come back to the city council meeting with an ordinance, and if you take action to adopt the ordinance, you're making it with an informed decision. So as we go through this tonight, and it's brief, there's not a lot to go through. We'll get a little bit more detail when we actually get the bond sold, but I wanted you to kind of see what we're looking at in the process and ask any questions you might have. Briefly on the first page, as you've been watching, the stock market has been on a roller coaster. It's pretty negative. Interest rates have been moving up and down as well. This first page is just a chart since the beginning of the year of what interest rates have done. If I actually would have moved back a little bit further on the calendar, it would have been a lot more extreme. You could have seen that it's a pretty significant upward movement. But we're up since January about half a percentage point on a 10-year borrowing. And that is significant when we're talking the amount of money we are talking about here, 45 million. So the longer we wait, if interest rates continue to move up, that's just additional costs that will be borne by the financing. So the quicker we can get this locked in, the better. If you look at the next page, which is, we always look at financially how can the system afford to pay this debt? And it's called the debt service coverage ratio. And we take the audit of the system, and you can just look at the 2021 column, operating revenues with interest income of 38.7 million. To operate the system was 32.2 million. When you look, that generates $6.5 million operating income. When you look at an audit on a water and sewer system, there is a depreciation line item under the operating expense that's not a cash item. That's not an actual cash outflow. That's an accounting measure that they depreciate the system. So it's not an outflow of money. We add it back into the mix. That 9.3 is available. So the system generated, collected revenues, operated the system, and generated $15.8 million at the end of the day to pay the mortgage, to pay the debt. The proposed debt for this $45 million transaction, if we finance this over a 15-year period, is a little bit over $4 million total principal and interest per year. So the debt service coverage on that is 3.9 or 391%. That's very strong. That's one of the stronger credits in the state. So there will be no problems whatsoever getting this transaction sold. We'll have investors clamoring to get a hold of these bonds. Next page, what are the various costs that go into issuing a debt of this size? And again, we're providing $45 million into the construction account, but we look to, right now, preliminary, look to issue $42.57 million in debt. So we sell bonds at 42.5, reoffering premium. That's not a cost or an expense. That's on the next page. I'll show you. That's a structuring mechanism on how we sell the bonds. But that's 2.9 million. So that's basically the pile of money we have, the sources. And what we spend it on down below, on the day of closing, you would have $45 million deposited into the construction account that the system, and that does not flow into the general fund. It doesn't flow into the accounts of the system. It's held at the trustee, and the system, along with the engineers, would send a requisition over to the trustee to pay the vendors directly, so that John Q. Citizen can never walk in and have any questions whatsoever that there's any misuse of funds. There's an accounting down to every penny. So that $45 million is available from day one to spend towards this project. Under hours discount, and we are working this as we have in the past with Stevens, Kevin Fott. He's actually up in Bentonville at a city council meeting, which I'm headed to after this myself. So we're kind of splitting this, but we're working this with Stevens. So our fee to structure and sell the bonds of $361,000. Bond counsel fee, the Friday firm, Shep Russell, his fee of $77,500. If we get the transaction rated, that would be about $32,000. If we go that route, this is easily a AA rated credit, maybe AA plus, which is about as high as you can get. Beaver Water is AA plus, and that's the highest credit in the state. You're going to be right there with them. And then just some other various accounting measures will reimburse the system for publication costs, things like that. So those are the costs that go into issuing a bond issue to generate $45 million in construction monies. Next page, pricing. And this is where the market's moving. And this is where we can't lock in until we have the offering document ready and we can get with the investors. But if we sold bonds right now for 15 years, if you look under the yield column, the rates we would get would be anywhere from 1.2% out to 2.65%. That's the various rates in today's market. The key thing to look at on the very bottom of the page, true interest cost. When you factor in the cost of issuance and everything that goes into this, what is the city's borrowing cost on this transaction? Right now it's 2.76%. When we looked at this back in January, and when we talked to the commission back then and actually showed them numbers, it was almost a half percentage point less than that. So that you can see that additional cost, the more we wait and if rates continue to move on us. And then the next to last page, net debt service schedule. This is basically the mortgage on the system. And you can see under principal, we're amortizing or paying down principal every year from now until 2037. So the total principal and interest is $3.7 million under the total P&I column, $3.7 million. You'll see the next to last column is a little bit interesting. I labeled it as existing Lowell P&I. The city a number of years ago, because Lowell didn't have the ability, the city issued debt for their behalf for them to take care of a project. So it was issued through the city, but it is an obligation of the city of Lowell. And it's a legal question on how we can kind of carve that out. It's a minimal amount, but I wanted to show it because it does show up on the system debt. But that's where you come over to the right side. Total principal and interest per year right now of $4,063,000. And then I went ahead and just added a brief calendar on the last page, schedule of events. And as we're planning right now, here to kind of update you this morning or this evening, get the bond rating around the 1st of April, probably mid-April, the 12th or so at your first council meeting in April is when we would look to sell the bonds and come to the city council meeting that night with the final results, answer any questions that night, and if it's acceptable to the city council at that point is when you would adopt the ordinance. And then we would look to close the latter part of May when the monies would be available for the system to spend. So that's kind of a brief overview of kind of where we stand and what it takes to get this money for the water and sewer system to improve and move forward. And we've got a number of steps in between now and then before we report back to you. But, you know, I wanted to at least kind of show you what we're thinking, answer any questions y'all might have.
Bob, I have a couple of questions.
Yes, sir.
First of all, the city's issuing the bonds, it's not Springdale Water and Sewer Commission, is that correct?
It would be the city of Springdale Water and Sewer revenue bonds. Yes, sir.
It's revenue bonds, but is the city liable for the
The
bonds?
city is not liable. The only pledge of repayment of the debt is water and sewer revenues. So it's not an obligation, general obligation, or tax of the city.
And there's no, so the bonds will be paid by the revenue of for the Water and Sewer Commission, so they'll obviously have to be raising rates in order to help retire these bonds
No,
over time.
yeah, at this point, because of how well they've run the system over the years.
I understand
Yeah.
where they are now, but over the life of a 12-year bond.
Yeah, if something happened, yes, you would not pledge tax revenues towards this whatsoever. If something happened, an unforeseen act of God where, you know, we lose some revenues of the system or something happens, it still falls to the ratepayers of the city, not the taxpayers.
Okay, yeah, and I think that distinction is important for everybody to understand. The other question I had, how does the recapturing the depreciation help pay for the bonds? Because that's just an accounting maneuver where you're actually, it's a paper transaction, it does not affect your cash flow.
That's right, and so
And-
when we base everything off of the audited financials, so that depreciation number is listed as an operating expense, but we know that that's not an outflow of revenue.
But in fact, though, you instead of the 15, you really have the 6.5.
No, you actually have, at the end of the day, when you collect all the revenues from your water and sewer ratepayers and you operate the system, treat the water, treat the sewer and all of that, you truly are left at the end of the day with 15 million available. Because if you look at the audit, it shows 6 million, but that's because of the accounting measure. That depreciation number is available to spend on your mortgage, on the debt, because it's not an outflow. Now, the system does set aside into various depreciation accounts, future construction accounts, as they've done very well in the past to plan for this. You know, we take that into account, but that one line item of depreciation is simply an accounting measure, and it is available for the system to spend towards the debt because they know it's available. That money didn't go anywhere. It's just when you look at the audit, the accountant is depreciating the system, and that shows up on the balance sheet as well. But we just want to make sure that the investors and the city knows that this is the bottom line that the system generated to pay the mortgage, and it is almost 4 times over and above what the debt's going to be. It's a very strong system.
And you feel pretty confident that it'll be AA rated?
If we go the ratings route, I have no doubt it's a AA. They've kind of backed off in this economy and coming out of COVID. I mean, there's been some issues on how they look at things, but all of the metrics show that this is a AA credit, possibly AA plus. I don't think we get to the AAA minus because very few, maybe 5 or 6 utility systems across the country get into that AAA category, which is, you know, the highest you can get. But
What was our rating on our last city bond we issued?
On the sales tax was and we got bond insurance on that, which also provided a credit wrap, but I believe the underlying was, well, I mean, I don't know if you remember, but it was either A+ or AA-. I think it was AA- on the sales tax.
Okay,
And I'll have that information for you next time, because that's a good question.
okay. Then the only other question I had, you sure they're in the math there on, when you're talking about sources of funds? Because isn't, Shep Ross is supposed to be $7,700 instead of 77,000?
I'll make sure you made that comment.
Yeah.
He's actually up in Bentonville as we speak, so I'll go up there and tell him that, Mike had a question for him.
Yeah, and, you know, tell him that we're telling his chauffeur hi too.
I'll let him know.
And Bob, just to be
Yeah,
clear, this in no way encumbers any city finances as far as our ability to bond in the future.
Absolutely not. It actually will, the next time the city would like to look towards another capital improvement campaign, it actually will enhance it, because you've got another aspect of the city out in the capital markets.
Okay.
That's showing their ability to repay, and you've got more eyes on the city of Springdale. It actually is going to provide a benefit.
What is the
Bob-
timeline at the construction?
When you issue debt, you've got what's called a reasonable expectation that you'll spend those monies within 3 years. Actually, 85% of it within 3 years. But for instance, on the last sales tax deal we did, because of COVID, and construction delays, you know, equipment and all that, I mean, we're not going to hit that mark on the sales tax, but there's no penalty. There's no cost. You just have to look and provide, to the IRS at the beginning, do we think we can spend the 45 million within 3 years? And the city's reasonable expectation is yes.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So Bob, the total interest amount paid over the whole term is 13,525.
Oh, yeah.
Is that correct?
Yes, so if this goes to term and we don't go in and, let's say, refinance or restructure if rates are lower and such like that. So yes, to get the 45 million, the interest you would pay over the 15 years is that 13,525,000.
Is there an early payment penalty or anything of that nature?
And good question. And one of the things that Heath and the commission wanted was as much flexibility as possible. And that's also what we try to provide when we look at the sales tax transaction. So we'll put in no more than a 5-year redemption, optional redemption window. We will look at and might try to add in some language that if some of the ARPA funds come in, anything else that the city, because we're all looking in a crystal ball and it's a little hazy what goes on, you know, from now to 5 years. Might try to get a little more flexibility in there. But at the end of the day, even though there's a 5-year redemption window, if the need is there, if the utility comes back is like, we need to refinance this and let's say either pay it off with cash or we need to stretch it out a little bit further, there are ways to do that. So we're not absolutely locked in at 5 years. There's maneuverability and flexibility in that as well.
But the pay schedule is set up to pay off in 15, is that correct?
Yep, fully amortizing every year. So we're just like your mortgage on your house, you're going to knock out some of that principal every year. So if we do come back in 5 years and look to restructure or refinance, we've paid off, you know, $10 or $12 million.
Any other questions for Bob?
Bob, on page 2, just because I'm not real familiar with your terms, proposed MADS is that money available? What does that mean?
Sometimes I get lazy and putting that maximum annual debt service. So that proposed, that 4,066,000 shows
And
up.
that's the same as what would be that includes that number from Lowell.
That does.
Did you say something about trying to not show that somehow?
Because it is an obligation of Lowell, but it was a placement with Bank of America at the time. The legal language, again, since it was issued through the city of Springdale, there's an argument made that if Lowell turns into Bethel Heights, for instance, you know, it kind of disappears, does it fall back on Springdale? That's a legal question. I don't believe so, because it is an obligation directly of their ratepayers and not Springdale. But I wanted to show that because there is an obligation out there but it's not costing Springdale and the ratepayers a penny.
Okay, and then you said just a few minutes ago that still on page 2, the income available for debt's 15,887,000.
Correct?
Okay, and you said that's 4 times the MADS. And that's where that 300, almost 4 times. That's that
If you have 15
391.
million available and you're spending 4 million, you've got 4 times the ability to spend. Most of and I've done billions of utility transactions in my old 35 years. If you can actually get to 125% coverage on a utility, that's actually doing quite well. Being at 4 times coverage that's why this will be rated very highly, because they're going to look at how good that the commission and staff have run this system. And investors will sleep well at night knowing that there's a transaction there's a lot of movement that can happen, a lot of bad that can happen, and their debt's still going to be paid off.
Okay. So, still on page 2, operating income for September 30th of 2021 was 6,516,000. What does that mean?
Collected revenues, and then the cost to operate the system.
So
Treat
that
the water,
money, that's net income,
that's net income.
right? So and that's deposited somewhere.
And whatever and Heath or
So
Chris,
that may be a question for Heath, but I want to just make sure I understand.
yes,
That's net income that we made as of September that the
in
cities-
operating, yes.
Okay. So the question to you, Heath, I guess, if you don't mind, is where is that money and what was it added to? And is there $45 million in that fund?
That money, can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, a lot of that money is committed to other projects that we have coming up. There's also additional debt we're probably going to have to encumber in the future due to growth, unprecedented growth, and unprecedented price increases based on inflation and other matters. So our financial strategy is quite simply this, is we need to bond the wastewater improvements to continue growth in our city, and then we would keep our cash in reserve to fund other projects as they may come up. So, for example, the growth in the southwest or southeast quadrant of our city, that's about $10 million we're going to have to spend. So some of that money is earmarked for that, and it will be going out of the coffers. Other projects that are coming up, we have $40 million in a mainline trunk project, a main line trunk that will be going from downtown Springdale out to the wastewater plant. So we have over $100 million of projects that are coming up, including the West Side Water Project, which those numbers have grossly increased from original estimates, about 25 to 30% just in the last year. So we're trying to keep our cash in reserve to handle things we have to do in the near term. And we're trying to figure out what we have to do in the long term in terms of financing. But right now, what's happening, Jeff, is our projections in our finances that we presented to the council 2 or 3 years ago have basically went out the window due to inflationary costs in construction of 30 and 40%. So what we are going to do with that cash is keep it in reserve, and then on smaller projects, spend that. Right now, we think that the wise thing to do is to borrow money at low interest rates, understanding they're going to increase, and seeing money as a commodity that we would then perhaps be able to leverage our cash position in the future to offset the interest rates we're paying today. So fundamentally, we don't want to spend those reserves down right now because we don't know what's going to happen with the future. The buying power of those dollars may be reduced because of the economic situation. But at the same time, we don't have the ability to borrow at the lower rates we do now with the credit we have now to get these projects done. In addition, to be eligible for the ARPA funds that we may or may not get, we have to have this project done by 2026. So the timing is bad. The economic situation is bad. Our ability to borrow in the future is bad. It will be for the city as well. And I think that forecasting economics right now is bad. So I would leave you with that, I suppose. I don't know if that's a good answer or not, but I think if you're going to borrow money right now and have good credit ratings such as we do, I think now's the time to borrow the money. And it may very well be that our cash reserves could actually pay the interest on the debt that we incurred today.
And one of the things that Heath and staff had, it's a shame we couldn't get it up on the screen, but he'd put together a spreadsheet and kind of color coordinated that shows the timing of when some of these projects come in and how this financing fits in. So many of our clients, if they need $2 or $3 million, they have to call us to borrow the money. They have to issue debt to do that. They don't have the ability to spend cash. Mike, as you know, every time we walk in the door, it costs, Shep and I, it costs money to borrow debt. Some cities and utilities don't have the ability to set up like y'all have done to effectively manage that, those expectations. So that's where this kind of comes into play. It does keep some of that cash available to spend towards some of these major projects. Takes the unknown out of some of those ARPA funds that are coming in at some point. We just don't know when.
Do we know how much?
Did you hear that, Heath? How much?
In terms of ARPA, Mr. Watson,
Yes.
we have no clue. And that's another battle we're fighting that's outside of this issue. And one reason we're decided that issuing the bonds is the best option to get the project started. If we do get ARPA funding, at least we can reimburse ourselves for this debt. But right now, the commission, myself, and several other entities in the state are fighting a battle with the governor's office. Our legislators are on our side. But the governor's office has basically shut the door in our face as far as where this money is going to be spent. And we're making the argument it's not the state's money, it's federal money to be spent on infrastructure. And quite frankly, it's a gentleman's battle that we are, or gentle ladies' battle, or gentle people's battle, to be politically correct, that we're fighting right now. And in fact, I've had meetings. One reason I'm zooming in, I've had multiple meetings a day with people in Little Rock that are helping us. And the unfortunate thing about the ARPA funds that are out there with the state is they're being sat on right now. It's a frustration, not just for utilities. It's a frustration for legislators. It's a frustration for municipalities. It's a frustration for any other entity that might be eligible for them. And we've been actively working with the Municipal League, with the Arkansas Water and Wastewater Managers Association, which I'm the legislative representative for. And we're basically getting stonewalled at this point. But if I wait to borrow money, or we wait to borrow money when the time's right, when we find out what the answer is, and the answer is no, then it's too late to even be eligible for it. So not only do we need to act now for the betterment of the community, we need to act now so if we are eligible for those funds, at least we'll be done with the project by 2026. And that also meets the bond requirements. And perhaps we will be eligible for funds. But right now, it's indeed a political battle in Little Rock, and we have been fighting a quiet war now, but I think after today and the discussions I've had today, we'll be fighting a more loud war with the governor's office and with the legislature on where these funds get apportioned statewide, as I also converse with my counterparts from all over the state in the next day or two.
Well, the end of 2024 is going to come pretty quick, isn't it?
Yes, sir. And that's, Mr. Mayor, that's when that money's got to be allocated.
Right.
And we've had our ask in for ARPA money, and I've talked to the council about ARPA money, and we've talked about what the ins and outs are. And it's a very complex situation. I think at some other point, maybe next month, I come back to the council or back to the committee and talk about the complexity of the politics and the financing of future revenues in conjunction with the inflationary factors that we're looking for in construction. It's a very complex problem, and the city is going to see the same thing. So it's got to be allocated by 24. So if you look at a spreadsheet that I can provide you or Rick can provide you a hard copy of, 2024 is a big year, and I think I've covered that in the presentation we gave to the council. We'll know we need to charge for rates. We'll need to know what we're going to have for the future, and we'll know when the ARPA money comes in. But until that answer comes in for Councilman Watson and the rest of the council, I can't answer that question. But we're fighting a battle right now to get those answers, to get that money to come in, to put it in the equation. But I cannot wait till 2024 for that to be allocated. I have to start this project right now, or it's going to further impede the growth of this city,
right,
and our community.
Heath, I have a question. So you said you had $100 million in projects coming up, and I may have missed it. Did you say how much you had in reserves?
We have about 57 million in reserve. So what we'd like to do is preserve that reserve to take care of the $3, $4, $5 million projects. We can service debt with that. So my philosophy, or our philosophy, and the one the commission's accepted, that I a pretty good philosophy, is let's maintain our reserves. We'll borrow the money, service the debt, and then we can kind of see how the economic situation unfolds with ARPA money and perhaps our rate study, and also with economic situation. And I would never want a economic situation in Springdale to go bad. But you know what? If things go south, like they did in 07, maybe that slows down. If they don't, which I hope they don't, maybe it goes up and changes. But the year 2024 is the year that we will know more about that. So to answer your question, those reserves are kept back there to handle the $2, $3, $4 million issue that come up. And our bottom line on reserves is to keep 10 million for any crisis. I think I'm going to up that to 15 million based on the inflationary cost, but that's where we're at. And Council Alderman Williams, if that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Thank
History
you.
of the reserves, I mean, has that grown? Is that historically grown?
Historically, it has grown, but we also have a lot of projects that are also in progress or construction in progress. So what you're really looking at in reserves that's available for anything. So if I wanted to go out and buy buy whatever, it's, you're looking at probably 25 to 30 million that's not spoken for in projects in the next 3 to 5 years.
Any other questions? So Bob, y'all will come back to us and at the appropriate time.
We will, and as the schedule looks, it might be at your April meeting. I certainly appreciate y'all's time tonight, because we wanted to do this, is to, not just drop it on you, because there's a lot of questions, and y'all have to make the decisions once we come back to you with the final. Like I said, we planned in April, the calendar's a little bit flexible, so we'll see. We're trying to move quickly.
And in the meantime, any questions the council has, probably be best directed at Heath and the water utility, and then they can get with you and.
Absolutely.
So,
Yes.
so I'll just say, Mayor, I think the presentation that Bob gives us looks like a very sensible method of bonding. The issue that I am struggling with, and same one Heath is as well, as he mentioned at first, is he doesn't want to borrow money, and I'm not sure I want to. So that's the one I'm having, that we need to do this, is what I need
Well, yeah.
information on.
I think, Heath, help us, because I think basically, if I understood right, the money you're bonding for is really pointed toward one major project. Is that correct?
That's correct. It's not just a general bonding. The project we're looking at specifically, it's just not a tranche of money, for example. So we're looking at improving our wastewater plant. When we first started looking at that through a peak flow study, which was started actually 5 years ago, we were looking at 25 to 30 million. That inflated to 45 million. And last week, our engineer called us and was having a heart attack. And I said, relax, it's okay. At this point, when you're up to 45 million, another 5 million isn't, it's bad when you get to the point where you say, okay, another 5 million, I can live with that. That project is inflated, but this particular money is targeted towards improvements of the wastewater plant that will enable us to serve the community for several years. And that's usually the limiting factor for a community is wastewater. So we're looking at that project specifically. That project has grown, continues to grow, a lot of concrete, iron, and steel. And yes, Alderman Watson, I am not happy with having to borrow money, but if I can finance a project and target it towards that project, that's what I want to be, to finance with today's money. That is the specific project we have asked the state for ARPA money for that could perhaps offset that debt in the future. But I don't know that right now. So I'm hedging my bets in a big way. And I'm hoping that we can issue these bonds and get this done for the city of Springdale. And then if the ARPA money comes in, it's a shift we did not expect, and it's a bonus. And then we can allocate that money and offset it somewhere else to do good for our city for growth.
Can we make sure of that, Heath? Because you said that the request for the ARPA money is for the wastewater project, right? So
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
finance the wastewater project.
What was that, sir? I'm sorry, I lost you for a moment.
So the question is that if we get that money that's specifically requested for the wastewater project and we've already financed that project, might we lose the ARPA money? I would like to make sure of that if possible.
Yes, sir. That's a very good question, but it's very much like the allocations that were given to the city. In our case, the ARPA money that's allocated to the state has to be allocated by this committee by 2024. It must be spent by 2026. If we delay the wastewater project, it will basically could expire under the ARPA. If we start now, we're confident we can get the money spent. We're confident that the legislature, regardless of politics, will have to do something with it by 2024, and we'll have more answers. And then, obviously, if we start the project now, it'd be done by 2026. So if we were eligible for ARPA money in the future, we'd be in a good, secure position to get it. In the interim, we're working hard to make sure that Springdale is in line for that. And that's where we're getting the closed door in the governor's office right now. But we have to proceed like we're going to get something.
And I'll add that when we issue the debt and the documentation, while the expectation is, because the investors in the city and the ratepayers, they want to know where is this $45 million going, the anticipation is going toward the wastewater treatment plant. We want to identify something if the ARPA money comes in a year, less, more, whenever that comes in, we don't just pigeonhole and say, you're gonna spend it on the treatment plant and that's it. It's gonna be that or general system improvements, other capital improvements the system needs to
Be
undertake.
basically like we do a ballot issue for road improvements.
Yes.
It doesn't specifically
Well-
name a particular
Yeah,
project.
you're not gonna do just Tyson. You
Right.
can shift that to other capital improvements. So that's what it kind of falls into Heath's spreadsheet that shows that if that comes in, that money is still available at a very affordable rate to go towards taking care of some of the other things.
Bob, can the
And
ARPA
that, and
funds retire the bonds early?
I don't, to be quite honest, and that's a good point, and we could add language in the documents to allow that. I don't know if the ARPA funds can be used for that.
And Councilman Overton, what I would add is, and maybe I didn't explain that very well, is the reason we asked for the 5-year no call, where we could pay it off early. If the ARPA funds came in, we could pay that debt off early, and we
So
could
that is-
offset that.
Should
Yes.
ARPA funds come in, that we would accelerate the payoff of the bonds?
We would, but to make, right, but to make the financing work for the investors, 5 years of no call was a nice balance to make it attractive to investors, to give us a better rate.
No call for 5 years.
That's correct.
5 years, that's correct. In that, I thought that was a very nice balance, because by then we should have hopefully have some definition economically on terms of monies, federal monies that may be coming to Springdale or may not be coming to Springdale. And then we could therefore refine our financial outlook for the council. The bottom line, prices are,
So the ARPA
everything
funds.
is everything is, there's a lot of unknowns right now. And I think that securing our future, or securing the knowns, even though they may be unpleasant, is good now. But at least if we get some ships that come in, as I say, within the next 5 years, that 5-year no call is kind of a security to us to save the ratepayers of Springdale and the citizens some money by paying off early if we get one of those ships to come in.
And
So you're confident in saying that, don't let me put words in your mouth, but the plan y'all are bringing forward with all the uncertainties that are out there, you believe is our best and safest way forward to enable us to continue to address the growth we're experiencing in Springdale? Because we've got, I would say out of that, out of that cash on hand, some of the smaller projects you're talking about, you've talked about some of them to the council, some that, the southeast portion of the city, the pipeline that you've talked about, the western pipe that you're laying, that we've actually got a road project design on the agenda tonight that coincides with that project. So we just got to plan ahead the best we can, and you believe this is the safest, most frugal way to do that?
For the wastewater project, it is. When you want to look at the main trunk line and the water project we're working on with the city, those are two different things. And this is the safest way to proceed forward financially for us to get the wastewater plant taken care of.
This allows you to move with the wastewater treatment improvements, the plant improvements, and still have the cash on hand to tackle these smaller projects, these various smaller projects that are addressing growth.
That's correct, but they're growing. So I'm hedging my bets.
Mayor,
And,
thing that
and-
Wyman kind of brought, I'm sorry, Heath, go ahead.
No, I'll go ahead and say, and I think, Rick, are you there?
He's here.
Yeah, Rick's, do you have spreadsheets? Anyway, I have a diagram that's very, I won't say crude, it's very general, but it shows some things. So short term, this $45 million what we need to do. In the midterm, hopefully we have a ship come in. If we don't, then, we're looking at perhaps RC money at 1% later. We're looking at other financing for the Robinson Force Main. But in the interim, we're also doing a very extensive rate study. We're not going to have a lot of answers until 2024, but for the city to continue to grow and be healthy and be secure in the growth, including the southeast quadrant, we'll call it. These bonds are going to let us do what we need to do for the next 2 or 3 years until I can get other answers that aren't necessarily in my crystal ball.
And Mayor, I know you're tired of hearing from the banker. I'm gonna add one thing because it kind of answers both of y'all's question is, is it time to borrow? And Wyman even brought this point up is you're going into the markets, with a very large cash balance on the balance sheet, but you're going into the markets at a very strong position to be able to show that. If you hold back on the issuance of the debt and you bleed down that money, you're going into the markets with a much weaker position. You're rating, and thus the interest rates, all things being equal, your interest rates will be higher. It will cost more because you're going in with a weaker spot to the investors, to the rating agencies and all of that. So it's from that aspect, if all things are equal, rates don't move on us whatsoever, it is a good position to go in knowing there's a cash balance back there to spend that you don't have to call us to walk in the door and loan money to.
Right. Great. Okay. Anything else, or anybody? All right.
Thank y'all very much for your time, and we'll be seeing you soon.
Good luck in Bentonville.
Thank you.
They're almost as good as we
Yeah.
are.
They're getting, yeah, I won't make any comments about that, but I'd like to thank the council and have a good evening. Thank you.
Thanks, Heath.
Thank you.
All right. We are at item 8, procedural motions. What's your pleasure, council?
Move for A and B. Second.
We got a motion and a second for A and B. Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Carries 8-0.
All right, thank you. We are now at item 9. We have a resolution making an appointment to the Civil Service Commission. Council, you've got, I've laid at your space there a resignation letter from Eric Harris. Eric has been on the commission for 12 years and has done an outstanding job, and we certainly appreciate his service on that very important commission. And you also have the online resume from Julie Loper. Julie is here tonight. Julie, thank you for being here. And I have read the resolution. Also, chairman of our commission, Bob Downham, is here. I think Bob and I know I've met with Julie. I think, Bob, you've met with Julie as well on the phone. And Julie and I met in my office for, I don't know, probably a good half hour, Julie. And that's the name that we're bringing forward for your consideration tonight. And I have I've read the resolution title, making an appointment to the Civil Service Commission.
I move the resolution be adopted.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further comment or questions?
It said we had how many other folks applied, Mayor?
We didn't have any other names. We have an online resume system, and when I know someone is interested in serving on a commission or a board, any city position like that, I asked them to send in a resume, and I don't believe we had any others that had listed Civil Service Commission as an interest. Julie's name actually came forward from Eric, and Eric knows Julie and thought she would do a great job, and that's when then she met with Bob and with me, and I agreed. So.
The only reason why I ask, in the past, we've had several occasions where the applications have come in and the council has actually interviewed folks, and we've gone into executive session and
Well,
made.
you haven't done that since I've been here. If we
No.
need to start doing that, we can.
Well,
but
that's what we did that with, when Bob was on, when Charlie Farmer
I
was
don't-
elected.
I don't remember that with Bob, and I know that we didn't do it with Danny McGinley or
No, we
Eric. So if we need to do something differently in the future,
Because I think
I'd be happy to do that.
the
But
statute says it comes from the council.
well, it does when you vote, if you vote to approve it. But I don't know, I think Ernest read the statute today. Are we in compliance with the
The
statute?
resolution says the city council fines should be appointed so that the ultimate authority is with the city
So how
council.
is the person supposed to be selected, Ernest? What's the statute say?
There is no specific selection process. There's minimum qualifications that have to be met, but there's no specific,
Well, like on the
Selection
planning
process.
commission, the statute specifically says the mayor makes recommendation
sure,
subject to council approval.
sure.
That's not the situation with the civil service, correct?
No, and every commission's a little different. You know, Public Facilities Board, technically, they're supposed to put forward 3 names, and the mayor brings one forward. The statute and the ordinance for Civil Service Commission just says the governing body makes the
Selection.
appointment.
The selection or the appointment?
It makes it makes the selection via appointment via resolution, which is what you have before you. And that's why the language of the resolution says the city council finds the person, not that the mayor's recommending. It says the city council is making the appointment. Because ultimately, the city council has the authority to do that. But as far as selecting someone to bring forward, there's no formal selection process. I think the mayor's discussed, and I know we've had other appointments to other commissions.
I've always felt like we did the Civil Service Commission differently from the other commissions.
You've been here a long time, so you may have, but not since
Like
I've
Mike
been.
said, we've gone into executive
Not since I've
session.
been
We've,
mayor.
we've had people come to the commission
Right.
to speak, like when Mrs. Broyles.
Yeah, see,
was
and
appointed.
that may be very well, but I had no way of knowing that. I mean, because this is what we've done with
So
this
you're-
is the 4th commissioner.
You're saying selecting the Civil Service Commission is no different than selecting a public facility?
I'm saying
board
this is
person?
the way we've done it the 4 times that I've been involved. And I had no way of knowing to do any different.
Well, the end result is no different. It takes the governing body action to do that, but there's a semantic difference with Planning Commission, Public Facilities Board, where it talks about the mayor brings that name forward, for example. That language is not in the Civil Service Commission statute, but the ultimate authority is with the city council, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
It just so happens the mayor has suggested a name. But the resolution doesn't say the mayor is suggesting, it says
Right.
city council finds the person should be appointed.
The resolution does say that several people have expressed an interest. And we didn't get the resume till tonight.
Mr. Harris's term expires at the end of the month. Or April 1st, I guess, technically.
I know of no one else that's expressed an interest.
Mayor, we did have some people who had expressed interest and then decided that they weren't ultimately interested in the position.
Okay. Thank you.
So if we were to table this, just to clarify or clear up this process, would it be a straight up table to the next council meeting? To clarify some of this language?
You're
Not-
really hard to understand.
Not sure I got all that, Kevin. Try
I'll
again.
try one more. If we were to table this to the next council meeting, would it just be a straight up table to the next council meeting? Because this, or we haven't brought this before a committee yet, as far as I recall.
No,
These
we haven't.
appointments.
And again, listen, if y'all want to change something, then you need to let me know, because we've done this is the way we've done it. So, and I know some of you haven't been on council very long, but if there's a change that needs to be made, then I'd like to know before tonight, but anyway, we'll, yeah, I mean, it's your decision because the council has to approve the candidate.
This is no different than the way we've handled other appointments to the Civil Service Commission, at least since I've been city attorney.
Bob, do you have anything you want to, if you do, go to the mic, please, Bob.
Just from what I know, I've been on it 10 years, maybe 11. I've been appointed 3 times. I've replaced Mrs. Broyles.
Right.
She resigned and I replaced her. So of the 3 times, I only had one person other than me that wanted it. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of people want this job, you know, and so we spend a lot of hours at this job, and so I think it was very nice that we get Mrs. Loper to apply for it. You know, I wish we could get, you know, more people interested in all these different committees, but a lot of people don't like to be on them anymore. So that's kind of my point on that. Thank you.
We do have a motion on the floor.
In a second.
We do have a motion and a second. So we'll need to deal with the motion. The motion was to approve. Okay. Any other comment or questions? All right, roll call.
Powell,
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Flores,
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman,
Yes, ma'am.
Fidgeroux.
Yes, ma'am.
Carries 8-0.
Julie, thank you for your willingness to serve. Please don't take any of this as you got caught up in a process that we probably need to discuss more. So thank you very much and look forward to having you serving on the commission. Bob, thanks for being here. All right. Item 10, Planning Commission report and recommendations by Patsy Christie. Patsy?
The first item on the agenda is a rezoning request to rezone 6.09 acres located on Old Missouri Road at 1225, 1256, 2717, and 2775 Old Missouri Road. Let me see if we can get, there we go. The request is to rezone the property from Agriculture District A1 to Large Product Retail Sales C6. There's a current car lot on that location, been there a long time. Planning Commission recommends approval of the rezoning request. The title of the ordinance reads, an ordinance amending ordinance number 3307, the same being the zoning ordinance of the city of Springdale, Arkansas, and the plat pertaining thereto by rezoning certain lands from Agricultural District A1 to Large Product Retail Sales C6 and declaring an emergency.
I'll make a motion the ordinance be approved.
Okay, we have a motion to approve
Second.
and a second. Other comments or questions?
I've been the one asking so many questions. I feel like giving Frosty a hard time.
Yeah,
tonight.
yeah, don't let him off easy. He's been nervous, I hear. All right, no questions? Anybody in the audience on this? All right, roll call.
Williams,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Flores,
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman,
Yes, ma'am.
Fidgeroux.
Yes, ma'am.
Powell,
Yes. Move the motion clause be adopted.
Thank you.
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Flores,
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman,
Yes, ma'am.
Fidgeroux.
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Both the ordinance and emergency clause carry 8-0.
Emergency clause are included because we have pending actions on this piece of property.
On the next one.
Okay. The next one is a replat of lots 3A through 3E of Worth Lane Commercial Park. Planning Commission reviewed this replat, recommends approval of it. The title of the ordinance reads, an ordinance accepting the replat of lots 3A through 3E of Worth Lane Commercial Park, City of Springdale, Arkansas.
Make a motion the ordinance pass.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the ordinance. Any other comments or questions?
This one doesn't have an emergency clause.
Okay.
I'm asking.
I assume it doesn't need one because they have a large scale that's still going through the process.
Okay, so we don't need
Yes.
an emergency
No.
clause. All right. No other comments or questions?
Sorry.
Roll call, please.
Overton.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Flores.
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman.
Yes, ma'am.
Fugierus.
Yes, ma'am.
Powell.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
Carries 8-0.
The next one is a request for a replat of the Hague Brown Commercial Edition, a replat of Lot 1 of the Mercy Health Edition. Planning Commission reviewed this request, recommends approval. The title of the ordinance reads an ordinance accepting the replat of Hague Brown Commercial Edition, a replat of Lot 1 of Mercy Health Edition to the city of Springdale, Arkansas, declaring an emergency. This one, I know there is a pending action on this one, purchase of the property.
So they're selling a piece of this?
Yes.
Did,
And we have they're actually selling both of these lots, and it is one lot on the original subdivision. Mercy had one lot, and this was an outlot that was left as Lot 2, and now they're going to be doing it into 2 separate lots. And we do have a development proposal for Lot 1.
didn't we do action on this for a parking lot or something?
No, you
Is
haven't
that
seen
not-
this
is
one
it-
yet. No.
Move the ordinance be adopted.
Second.
Okay, motion is second. Any further comments or questions? Anyone? Okay, roll call.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Flores.
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman.
Yes.
Fugierus.
Yes.
Powell.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
Overton.
Move the mercy clause be adopted.
Flores.
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman.
Yes.
Fugierus.
Yes.
Powell.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
Overton.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Both the ordinance emergency clause carry 8-0.
All right, thank you. Item 11, Parks and Recreation Committee, Chairman Mike Lawson. Mike?
Thank you, Mayor. We met last week. We had 2 resolutions before us. They both are recommended for approval. The first resolution has to do with the rec center and adding a sport court and some rubber flooring, audio system, and some other miscellaneous stuff. It totals $178,731.98. The resolution reads, a resolution to appropriate funds for additional renovation and improvements to the rec center.
Move the resolution pass.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further comments or questions? Okay, roll call.
Harriman. Fugierus. Powell.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
Overton.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Flores.
Yes, ma'am.
Carries 8-0.
The second resolution has to do with waive competitive bidding. What Chad's doing is we're adding to the office space upstairs and the classrooms, where they can start utilizing some space up there that's need to be renovated for quite some time, as busy they've been. The resolution it's recommended for approval as well. It reads a resolution to waive competitive bidding for additional renovation and improvements to the rec center.
Move the resolution pass.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the resolution. Any other comments or questions?
So I just have a question about the resolution, the way it's worded. Have we already appropriated the $134,000? So we are appropriating it tonight.
Correct.
We're spending it tonight. So
Yes.
it's more than just waiving competitive bidding. Correct?
Right,
Okay.
yes. It's also appropriating the funds. Do
We're
we need-
spending the money tonight, I guess is
Yeah.
what I'm asking.
Do we need to change any wording?
No,
on that?
that's the way it's reading.
Okay.
I just didn't understand.
Okay.
that.
Hmm.
In the first resolution, correct?
No, it's two different
No, these are
things.
two different. One is, the first resolution is all the downstairs stuff.
Right, but he's talking about what the purpose.
And the second resolution
Yeah.
is waiving competitive bidding and appropriating the funds to work with Milestone, right?
Right,
For the
Yeah.
upstairs, the construction upstairs,
classroom,
classroom.
classrooms, yeah.
We have to waive competitive bidding on that one. But the reason we don't have to waive competitive bidding on the first resolution was because all that product is being purchased on a buy board, off a buy board.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, any other questions? Did we get a motion and a second? Okay. Roll call, please.
Fugierus,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Flores,
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman.
Yes, ma'am.
Carries 8-0.
Okay, Chad, I asked Chad to, it'll just take a minute, but you shared some stats with me real quickly
Right.
today at department head meeting. Give the council those.
Correct. We recently had our spring registration for our youth baseball, soccer, and youth softball. And our soccer went up over 46% from last year. We increased by about 400 kids just from last spring. And in baseball, we increased 200 kids. So you're talking, what's that, 30 extra teams this year for our spring league. And our softball even went up 23%. So it's going to come here sooner or later, but we're probably going to need more fields, which I know we have 4 out at Shaw. But we can make it this year. It's going to be pretty tight. You know, we may have some complaints, but we'll get everybody played and everybody should have a good time.
Thanks, Chad. Item 12, Police and Fire Committee by Chairman Brian Powell.
Thank you, Mayor. Met last Monday and we had two resolutions that we're bringing forward and they were both recommended for approval. First one has to deal with extending a contract with the Record Service. It's been 5 years, and so Chief Gamble brought this back in front of us to renew the contract. The resolution reads, a resolution supporting the execution of a contract for Record Service for the Springdale Police Department. And this is with NWA Towing, I believe.
Yeah.
Move the resolution be adopted.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further questions or comments? I know we discussed this at committee. Assistant Chief Wright, or
How about Hudson?
Derek Hudson is here in Chief Gamble's stead. If you have any more questions. I think it's been a good experience, Derek, right?
Yes, we've had no complaints. 5 years ago, we did this. We had several inconsistencies with service and pricing using various different companies. NWA Towing's done us a great job over 5 years. So, yeah, we want to continue.
Okay. Thanks, Derek. All right, roll call.
Powell,
Yes.
Williams, Watson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Flores,
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman.
Yes, ma'am.
Fugierus.
Yes.
Carries 8-0.
The next one is bringing a resolution before us for emergency vehicle renovation. And read the title of that is a resolution to authorize the acquisition of emergency medical vehicles. Chief Skelton is here if anybody has any additional questions from the committee meeting.
Go ahead and tell us what we're getting, Ron, please.
First one is going to be a remount of an existing chassis or existing ambulance we have. We'll get a new chassis, take the box off, and they'll update it, improve it, and whatever it needs to be done on it, and then remount it. That's our first one we're going to get done. We brought to you the second one because it's 2 years to get it produced, so we need to get the order in now. And I know I think there's some questions about the fund and the amount. We have close to, I think, the amount to cover both these ambulances, but by the time the second one is ordered, we definitely will have the funds in there to cover that one. Hopefully even covering a third one that we're probably going to have to line up here in about 6 to 12 months in order just to get it in that production line the way things are looking.
What is the wait time now? Or are they telling us?
Well, what Jim has told me is like for the second ambulance that we will order, it's going to be a 2-year production on it.
Wow.
That's about double, I think, what we were getting.
And that will come to us at budget, right? One of these?
Not if you approve this.
Oh, okay.
This
Would you
is
go
all in the
ahead?
resolution.
I think we're gonna go ahead and, what the ask is to go ahead and pay for these so that we capture the savings. Is that correct?
We'll get them ordered.
Yeah.
I don't think
We won't actually
we won't
pay.
be paying for the second one
Yeah.
till it's closer to production.
But
And
we
that's why I
get
think the funding, even if we're really close in this account, the funding should well be over that by the time
Okay.
we're paying for it.
But we lock in a price.
Yes.
When we order it.
That's what we're trying to do today, is lock in the price and lock in the time clock.
Right.
to get that chassis ordered to get it in the process.
Chief, would you explain the funding, where we're getting that money from?
I'll try. I'm sure Wyman
Right.
Colby can help me. We set aside 10% from our ambulance billings, and it's in just a constantly accruing funds, and that's our ambulance replacement cost. And that's, unless I'm mistaken, that's the only thing it's used for. Equipment, we handle through budget processes and through everything else.
So to follow up on Amelia's question, we're spending out of the fund $222,000 tonight, and we're ordering another ambulance. But at some point in time, we'll have to pay for this ambulance
Yes.
that we're ordering. So it would come back to us to go ahead and appropriate the money out of the fund or not?
Can we not appropriate it? Or
Because it doesn't appear like we're doing that tonight. I just wanted to
I bet
make
you're
sure.
right. Yeah.
Kind of.
Are you on?
Let's have the mayor do his speech from up there too.
Hey, I can holler. Now it is.
We have the unreserved, unrestricted general fund that we take money out of typically, but this is a restricted fund.
Right.
So there's a little over $500,000 in that fund.
Yeah.
We have to pay for one now, so we're gonna take the 200 and some odd thousand out of it for that. Even whenever you approve it in your budget, so basically you're buying one now and you're given permission to go ahead and order the other one.
Right.
When that time comes, we're appropriating another 200 and some odd thousand out of that same special fund when we approve the budget. It's gonna be approved in that budget.
Oh, it'll be in the budget.
It'll be in the budget.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Budget, even though it's restricted.
Gotcha.
Yeah, okay.
And you got about 100,000 a year.
Well, but we don't know what year the ambulance is gonna come in according to Ron.
You would still have enough even next year. If it came due, you'd have enough in
Says
there.
24
Next
budget
year,
in the resolution.
24, you'd have plenty there.
It looks like we're planning on the 24 budget. If it's gonna be 2 years,
That's what's in the resolution.
right?
Well, I think Colby's saying we might put it in the 23 budget
Yeah,
and just
okay.
not spend it.
Okay, gotcha. Right.
I move the resolution be adopted.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any further comments or questions? Roll call.
Williams,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Flores,
Yes, ma'am.
Perryman,
Yes, ma'am.
Fidgeroos,
Yes.
Powell.
Yes.
Carries 8-0.
All right, thank you. Item 13, Finance Committee Chairman Jeff Watson. Jeff?
I think Mike handled this committee meeting
Yeah, he
Monday
did.
night.
He did.
Yeah, there was one item before the finance committee. It was actually a contract to improve street and drainage from 56th Street to County Line. I believe Ryan's here to answer any questions. I'll go ahead and read the resolution. It was recommended for approval. A resolution to authorize the execution of an engineering services contract for street and drainage improvements for 56th Street.
Ryan, I kind of referenced this a little earlier when we were talking to Heath. There's this trunk line that the water department's contracted for. The designer is, the civil engineering is being done by Olson, the design. And we approached Olson knowing that these projects would probably run concurrent. And there is a timeline on this. We probably would not pay for this until the next bond issue as far as actual construction, but we would like to go ahead and get the design work finished so it'll be ready to go when the water department's ready to move forward with their project. This is for the design of 56th North and also to County Line Road, and also County Line Road west to Shaw Park, correct? Okay.
I'll make a motion, the resolution pass.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Are there any further questions or comments? Anyone? Okay, Denise?
Watson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Flores,
Yes, ma'am.
Merriman, Fugierus.
Yes.
Powell.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Carries 8-0.
All right, thank you, Jeff. Boy, y'all are in for a treat now.
Been waiting all night for it.
It won't be long. This will be one of my shorter ones. All right, can you hear me? Is this mic on? I really want it to be on.
It's not on up here.
Check, check. There we go. All right. Rearrange a little here.
Almost in the way right there.
All right, council and residents of Springdale, it's my privilege to present my 14th annual, the 2022 State of the City Address for the City of Springdale. While we always have positive news to report, we've never been in better shape as a city than we're in today. It's true that financially, we're in a better position to serve the needs of our residents than ever before. But even more importantly, thanks to our business-friendly climate, we have seen both new and existing businesses continue to invest and thrive in Springdale. Our residents have consistently stepped up to support those local businesses, keeping more dollars in Springdale where they can be used to provide services, infrastructure, and amenities that truly make Springdale such a great place to live and raise a family. We also need to recognize and acknowledge those millions of dollars in private partnerships that have and will continue to create wonderful public spaces for all our residents to enjoy. Along those lines, I'd like to encourage everyone to please be involved in the upcoming opportunities to give input as we update our downtown master plan. That process is just about to begin. It will include several public meetings designed to hear from our residents. We would not be experiencing the growth that we are seeing downtown had it not been for the master plan that we have in place. But over time, things change and updates are needed. While we had great public input and participation about 6 years ago when the plan was first developed, this update is an important opportunity to weigh in on needed adjustments to the original plan. We are interested in what you want to see in our downtown, no matter where you live in Springdale, so please be a part of this process. While considering all of the existing, exciting residential and commercial development underway in our city, it's easy for the casual observer to focus only on our downtown or our overlay district, and that's certainly understandable. There's no doubt the current projects underway and projects soon to be announced in those areas of our city are phenomenal. And if you haven't seen lately what's going on in those areas, I would urge you to check it out. But besides that, we have significant investment and construction going on all over Springdale. I'll not spend time tonight listing those projects because I would be sure to leave some out. Let me just say that we have never had the amount of investment and development going on in Springdale that we are seeing today, and it's not even close. However, all of this growth does bring challenges, especially when it's coming at us so fast. I think we heard about that from the water and sewer side tonight. No matter how well we plan for and address those challenges, it will take our best work to keep up with needed improvements as much as possible, as much as that's possible. That's why I'm so appreciative to our voters for the strong support for bond issues in 2012 and 2018. Just imagine where we would be today had those issues failed. But the voters of Springdale strongly supported those ballot issues by an average of over 80%. We've taken that support very seriously and have been committed to spending that money wisely and prioritizing projects that best address our needs and promote growth. I want to commend this council on your leadership through that process. That being said, it's not too early to begin preparing for the next bond issue to take to our voters. The current plan, and keep in mind, based on what we heard tonight on the water and sewer side, this is still fluid. In fact, we've got a meeting with that same Bob Wright and Kevin Fott next week to begin to discuss this. But the current plan is to ask the voters to approve a new bond issue probably in late 2023. This bond issue, as with the previous two, will include no sales tax increase for our residents. In fact, With a new bond issue in 2023, we should be able to completely pay off our 2012 issue, which would free up approximately $5 million annually in our general fund. Between now and then, we'll be working together with you and our residents to develop some of the proposed improvements we will commit to with the next bond issue. Now, with all that in mind, and thanks to our strong financial position, over the next several months, we will be bringing preliminary design proposals forward to be funded out of our general fund surplus, just like the one you just approved, the street project you just approved. These projects will include some road design, a design for a new senior center, possibly the replacement of Station 4, the design and some property acquisitions that relate to projects we're confident we'll want to move forward with. Besides those, I'm sure there will be other projects that our residents bring forward or that you bring forward that we'll want to get ready so we can hit the ground running after this next bond vote. Of course, there are other challenges besides growth. One of those I'm sure you'll be hearing more about, and that's because it's an issue not only for Springdale, but for our region. The issue is affordable housing, or as I prefer the term, workforce housing. I'm a strong believer that wherever one chooses to live in our city, there should be a diverse selection of quality housing they can afford nearby. For example, if a person works in our downtown, there needs to be quality housing opportunities nearby that they can afford. You shouldn't have to live miles out in the country to be able to afford to work in Springdale. But as the old saying goes, a rising tide lifts all boats. Our city and region will function better and healthier when areas all over our city offer a mix of quality housing to fit all needs and all incomes. Now, this is not something the city can or should dictate, but we can support and encourage those developers who are willing to invest in more diverse housing opportunities throughout Springdale. And so much of this is changing in Springdale already. Attitudes have changed, perceptions have changed, and thankfully, and I'm saying this is a long-term Springdalian, thankfully there's no longer a wrong side of the tracks in Springdale. Another challenge is proper use of the $21 million American Rescue Plan funding. Most might say, well, that's a great problem to have, and we have to agree with that. But we can, because we can do so much good with those funds if we use them in ways that create lasting impact for our residents. So far, most of what we've spent certainly does that, but we have a long way to go. Our finance department is working with our consultant to help develop an application process for those wanting to request ARPA funds. But there's a word of advice to those interested. The reporting requirements for this money are onerous. And for the city's part, we will have to carefully vet any potential subrecipient of those funds in order to protect the taxpayers of Springdale. That's because if any money is misspent, we will be responsible for paying it back to the federal government. And while we're thankful for all the good that this money can do, we need to be aware that the proper administration of these funds will stretch the capacity of an already stressed financial department. I'm not asking for any additional positions, but that could be coming. Our more immediate concern, however, is filling open positions we already have citywide. And that's just a function, y'all, that's not just in Springdale, that's not just in cities. Every industry you talk to, and you hear the same stories I do. However, I've got to say that your actions for our employees at budget time last year went a long way toward helping us retain and attract talent. But as we talked about at the time, with inflation being what it is right now, and all the pressures and competition for the workforce, we're probably not finished with addressing those issues. We're discussing some other ideas internally, and hopefully would help with employee retention, at least in some areas. Just stay tuned, and as we discuss these, and I discussed this with our staff this morning, with our department heads, it's not all about money. I mean, we can address that as best we can and be competitive, but there's more to this workforce issue than pay. I think that's evident to everyone. And we've got to find those answers, and it's going to take hard work to find those answers so that we can continue. We're basically a business. We're a city government, but we're a business with almost 600 employees. And we have other large employers in Springdale that are struggling just like we are in filling their positions. So we all need to work together to figure out what we need to do that. And again, it's more than just pay. Now, let me touch on a new position that was approved in this year's budget. We have a new planning position that will begin work in Patsy's department, our planning department, on April 1st. Along with this new hire, I will also be establishing the Springdale Active Transportation Committee. Now, several months ago, I disbanded the Springdale Trails Committee. The timing seemed right to step back and reorganize. We had reached the point that we had committed all available trail money for the next couple of years. While the new planner, working with our new Active Transportation Committee, will still oversee trail development, they will also broaden their scope to include sidewalks and other bike and pedestrian infrastructure. We need a renewed focus on connecting sidewalks from neighborhoods to trails and other destinations so residents can more safely walk or ride to school, work, or for recreation. I'll be reaching out over the next few weeks to potential members of this important committee. We'll also be eliminating a position this year. You all know by now, at the end of this month, we'll be saying goodbye to Wyman Morgan, our longtime Director of Administration and Financial Services. Wyman has served this city well for 21 years, and I can't even begin to thank Wyman enough for his trust and for using his talents and abilities to help the city of Springdale. We've had some difficult times in this city. There were times early on in my 14 years so far that I knew we would make it. I just didn't know what that would look like. Wyman has always been steady, and that has helped keep me steady. He has worked with my Chief of Staff, Colby Fulfer, and our financial team to ensure a smooth transition. Together, they are ready to assume Wyman's responsibilities and continue to move our city forward. Wyman is leaving this city in better shape than it's ever been in. And I know we all hope to leave places better than we found them. And Wyman can certainly say he's doing that. We'll miss him, but I know you and the citizens of Springdale join me in wishing him a long and enjoyable retirement. He certainly earned it. And we'll have a big party here before long, Wyman. I hope y'all can all come. We'll make sure everybody knows about it. I could go on a lot longer, Jeff, but there's so much more to talk about. But instead, maybe I should just go get in line at our new Chick-fil-A. You know, the one out by the Sam's Club, down the road from Arkansas Children's Northwest. Or I could pick a great place downtown to walk to for dinner or dessert. The point I'm making is that not long ago, we didn't have any of those options. Now we have those and many, many more, with even more on the way. Please don't misunderstand. I'm very thankful for the longtime businesses in Springdale that have served us and sustained us for many years. I'll give a shout out to our Arkansas Food Hall of Famer, Neil's Cafe, as one example. My point is, this great city continues to become greater. Along with that growth, our city government must continue to grow and adapt, making the best decisions as they relate to returning services to our residents. We'll continue to work with all partners to make Springdale, which is the heart of Northwest Arkansas, by the way, the preferred place to live, work, and play. But it will take the best work of this council, the mayor's office, every city department, every police officer, every fireman, every employee, along with every commission and committee that serves the residents of this city. We will also need to continue to support the important work of the Downtown Springdale Alliance and the Springdale Chamber of Commerce. I have no doubt we'll continue to rise to that occasion. The people of Springdale always have. So thank you to all who work to make Springdale great, to all those who call it home, no matter how long you've been here or where you've come from. More than anyone else, the future of Springdale depends on you. Every church, every school, every business, every nonprofit, and every civic organization is vital to our success. We're all in this together, and we need you all. Sandy, this summer we'll celebrate 45 years of marriage together, to each other, by the way. I remember our struggles as a young married couple with 3 little kids, trying to make ends meet while starting a small upholstery business. Back then, we never could have imagined what living in Springdale would mean to us. Springdale provided a safe place to raise our family, quality schools to educate our children, great parks to enjoy, and a church where we can freely worship. Living in Springdale gave us so much more than we'll ever be able to repay. And that's why serving the people of this city is a joy I'll never take for granted. I want to sincerely thank you all for this opportunity as we look forward to another great year in this great city. God bless y'all and God bless Springdale. Okay. Appreciate that. And we are at item 15. Do we have any comments from our city council members? Hearing none. Do we have any comments from our city attorney?
No, sir.
All right. Now, we're almost done, but I do have something I want to share with you that you'll be glad I did. I got an email today from a gentleman named Scott Jones. And Ron, I thought Blake would be here tonight. This is about 3 of your coworkers, Chief Holt, Jimmy Vaughn, and James Curley. And we'll bring them back and honor them another time. And you probably know this story already. I don't even know if they're talking about it because I sure didn't know about it. This is what Scott Jones wrote. He said, Mayor, my name is Scott Jones, and I'm the sales rep in Northwest Arkansas for Pierce Fire Trucks. I want to let you know the details of what happened when we were at Pierce in Appleton, Wisconsin, February 23rd. I know Chief Blake Holt, Assistant Chief Jim Vaughn, and Captain James Curley look at their paramedic activity as normal day-to-day work, and I understand that thinking since I'm also a retired firefighter. But this event is truly worth
Springdale.
mentioning. Hold it, guys. As we were working on the pre-construction of the new pumper, across the loudspeaker, there was a page for an emergency response team to respond to the cafeteria. We made mention of hearing this and continued to work when a short time later, a request for an AED was announced. It's the defibrillators, right? And at this point, these 3 Springdale firemen / paramedics said, let's go check it out and make sure they don't need help. Well, 26 minutes of CPR and 5 or 6 shocks from the AED later, the patient was breathing on his own and started to respond. There was a delay in the arrival of EMS, and the willingness of these 3 to respond when needed, and their proficient CPR is the reason this patient is alive today. It is rare for anyone to survive CPR, much less CPR with multiple shocks. They showed the best of Springdale Fire Department, and the city should be proud. They have won the appreciation of Pierce Manufacturing. Please see the video link below. And this is a video from Mike Lyle. And you guys play that video, will you please?
Hello, Springdale Fire Department. This is Mike Lyle up at Pierce Manufacturing. I heard you guys were checking in on me, and I thought I better send a quick video because this might just fall in the category of seeing and hearing is believing. I'm doing fantastic, especially considering the way we met back on Wednesday, the 23rd of February. I can tell you, gentlemen, that from the very bottom of my heart, I am greatly appreciative for the help that you gave me on that day. 24 minutes of CPR, 5 or 6 shots from the defibrillator. Gentlemen, you are absolute heroes, and your grit and determination is certainly not lost on me. My family and I are eternally grateful, and I can't wait for the time when I get to shake your hands and see you face to face. You better be careful, because I'm likely to give you the biggest bear hug I can. Thanks again for checking in, guys. Can't wait to see you soon. Take care.
That hit me just right today. And I know that we've got a department full of men and women that do this every day as part of their job. Derek, we know that we've got police officers who do this, who serve our residents this way and are willing to do whatever they've got to do to protect our residents. We live in a great place, and I just wanted to leave you with that tonight as we go on our way. All right? Do we have a motion to adjourn? We're adjourned. Thank you all.
Good night, everyone.